Today we're driving the all-new 2024 Lexus TX. We are in a 500h F-Sport Performance Premium all-wheel drive. Starting price on this model is about $68,000. As tested, it's over $74,000 with a few options which we will include in the description. The Lexus TX base model starts at $55,000 and goes up from there. It's available in front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive configurations. We have a 2.4-liter turbo, and this car has a 2.4-liter turbo with a hybrid powertrain. So it's actually quite powerful, making 366 horsepower, 409 pound-feet of torque. That engine and powertrain combo is mated to a 6-speed automatic. Basically, this is the hybrid max powertrain that we see in the Grand Highlander. They're just calling it the Direct 4 with Lexus. So we see quite a few differences here between the Grand Highlander and the Lexus TX. This interior is notably more upscale. All the materials, everything feels very nice. We have some different design elements here. Everything has been Lexusified. We even down to my least favorite little touch buttons here on the steering wheel. But everything on first impressions feels and looks very high quality. We get a 21-speaker Mark Levinson sound system, which we'll test out later on in this video. Of course, wireless CarPlay, Android Auto, the same nice big 14-inch touchscreen we see in a lot of other Lexus models now. USB-C ports everywhere, lots of physical controls for camera view, your parking brake, everything is nicely laid out. You've got buttons here to pop your tailgate, your fuel filler cap, 3-seat memory settings. I mean, everything in this TX is very intelligently designed and well laid out for easy use. Let's walk you around this briefly, and then we'll take it for a drive and get some initial driving impressions, because I haven't really spent a lot of time in this car yet. We're at the first drive event out here in Austin, Texas, and I'll show you what this thing looks like. So this TX 500h rides on 22-inch wheels, and you can see they're pushed out a little bit farther to the fenders. They look nice. It's got a good stance to it. 255/45 R22s, still a little bit of sidewall on these massive wheels. Some bigger brakes on this Lexus TX, which is nice to see. And you can actually, if you look closely, you'll notice this is actually a two-tone wheel, kind of a dark gray and a black behind those spokes. Looks really sharp in my opinion. Biggest controversy with this new TX from a styling standpoint is just this front grille. I think it looks quite good on darker colors. I'm just not sold on it in this celestial silver. Everything else, though, I think looks great from a styling standpoint. Of course, the big news with the Lexus TX is just how much space is on the inside. The idea that you can fit, this is a 6-passenger with the captain's second row, the idea that you can fit 6 passengers in here with comfort is pretty awesome for the Lexus brand. Can't really say that about a lot of their other models. We have some storage space under here for a cargo cover, jack, compact spare tire. These third-row seats, you can fold them down with electric motors, as opposed to in the Grand Highlander, where you had to use some straps and levers, and it was kind of a cheaper feeling operation. Even though these motors take their sweet time, it does feel more Lexus-like. So you can get back here with just the press of a button. There you go. That'll fold forward, and getting back here is super easy. Very quick access. We'll slide this second row seat all the way back on its rails. I'm 5'10". I have a little bit of space to put my feet underneath that captain's chair. I have backrest adjustability here in the third row. That's nice. USB-C port, little home for that seat belt up front, cup holders, leather. Yeah, all very nice. And there's even a bit of room behind this third row to put stuff, which is always very important in these 3-row SUVs. A little bit of a pass through here. Let's check out the second row. So all we have to do to get out and escape, just pull that. And we even have some grab handles to get in and out of this TX with a bit more ease. So one thing Lexus is touting with this TX is if you have a car seat latched in here, you can still get access to the third row just by moving the seat all the way forward and squeezing through there. That's always good. And I will say the quality of everything in this TX just feels a little bit nicer, a little bit more upscale than it does in the Grand Highlander. All the materials, the finishings, the feel of everything, operating everything from the seats to the buttons, the switchgear, to the ride over the road. is all just a little bit nicer. I think it is very representative of the price point of this TX, which I'm very glad to report, because that was kind of a concern with the Grand Highlander. It was nice, but it wasn't that much nicer feeling than the regular Highlander, which can be a little bit rattly, a little bit plasticky inside. This TX definitely takes a step up. So I think that's probably the biggest news here for me, as just in my personal own interest. This new Lexus TX also features dynamic rear steer, which I am excited to test out on the road, as well as adaptive variable suspension depending on the drive mode. Let's pop the hood, take a look at that 2.4 liter turbocharged hybrid powertrain. Set pretty low in the engine bay. Like I said earlier, 27 miles to the gallon combined, 366 horsepower. Very quiet in this TX upon first impressions, just driving it around town. Let's hop in, get behind the wheel, and see what this is like on the road. Kind of a throaty growl to this 2.4 liter turbo hybrid. Sounds good in my opinion. Very smooth drivability at low speeds. These seats are really comfortable too. Watch out for the buzzards. Great power, nice and responsive. Again, initial impressions in this video, but right off the bat, I'm noticing this TX feels so much tighter, so much sharper than the Grand Highlander and regular Highlander. From the steering feel to the chassis rigidity, Lexus has done a lot of work here to improve noise, vibration, harshness over the road, over bumps, and you can really feel it even with these 22-inch wheels. Brake pedal feels nice too, nice and firm, good modulation. I could do with a little bit more bite at lower speeds. You just have to put a bit more pressure than you expect onto the pedal. Ride quality is soft, supple, a little bit of float over larger bumps, but that's about what you'd expect for a vehicle like this. Even though this is the F-Sport Performance Premium all-wheel drive, it still has to prioritize comfort and luxuriousness. What do we have with regard to drive modes here? I do wish there were a constant icon for our main infotainment here, because you do have to go into drive modes here to select Sport, Eco, Normal. Let's try Sport for just a minute, see how that feels. It's quick. A little bit of active sound control there too, piping in engine sound. We can use our paddle shifters to change gears. Here in Austin, Texas, the roads are all pretty nice, so we can't tell too much of a difference with the adaptive variable suspension. I will say the rear steer in this isn't as noticeable as I was thinking. It kind of works in the background, though it does make for some sharper handling with this TX. Let's go back into sport mode. We'll attack this roundabout. Really responsive powertrain off the line. Very little lag. Smooth, even in sport mode with slightly aggressive throttle tuning. Steering feels good. You can feel a little bit more body control there with the adaptive variable suspension. Let's test out the turning radius with this four-wheel steer. Ooh, yeah, that's a big improvement. Nice. This TX feels great. It drives so well. Very responsive, very tight, very smooth and quiet. I think that's the biggest win here with this Lexus versus the Toyota variants. Sport mode makes a big difference with the chassis balance in this TX. A lot less understeer, a lot less body roll. Not too sold on the the sound, the active sound control there with the engine noise, but I guess it's part of the effect. It doesn't have a button to turn that ASC off. We do get active noise cancellation though in this Lexus TX. That's standard across all models, so it'll basically play sounds out of phase with road noise, tire noise, and cancel out those unpleasant sounds as you're driving down the road. Makes for a much quieter and more luxurious cabin. Infotainment is quick and responsive. That's nice. Such an improvement from the old mouse and touch pad controls in the previous generation Lexuses. All right, let's find some good driving roads out here and see how this TX 500h F Sport performance handles. We're going to leave it in normal mode to start, and then we'll switch into sport mode. This TX feels surprisingly planted around corners. I like the steering weight. Really good ride control over bumps. Suspension doesn't hop around at all. Puts its power down great with the direct 4 all-wheel drive. And there's just a ton of torque from a dig. I actually prefer the long gearing of this 6-speed. It really allows this hybrid turbo 2.4 to just utilize all that power and dig itself out of corners. A little bit more body roll here in normal mode. Let's go back and switch us into sport. That'll stiffen up the adaptive variable suspension. We'll get some piped in engine sound. Sometimes navigating this infotainment, changing drive modes can be a little bit tedious, unfortunately. But this does handle very well in sport mode. You can definitely feel a big difference with the suspension tuning. Let's test out the paddle shifters a little bit. We do have a manual mode. Little blips on downshifts there. This TX is quick. Back into drive. Really nice rotation with that rear steer. Again, MacPherson strut based front suspension, but multi-link rear. You're not going to be wanting for power in the TX 500h, that's for sure. Let's do a quick 0 to 60 here. We'll just roll into it. Up a pretty big incline here. Gets the job done. That's awesome. Even in sport mode, ride quality is quite good. Suspension is well controlled, but it's still soft and supple over bumps. Do another turning radius test here. This feels like a high-quality Lexus product. If I didn't know that this was based on the Grand Highlander, I'm not sure I would be able to tell from behind the wheel. It's a very, very different car. All the structural reinforcements, the improvements to NVH, the materials, everything in here is very high quality, and you have space and room to breathe in this cabin. Room for kids, room for people in the back, cargo, even with the third row seats up. And while we're just cruising, we can't forget to test out the 21 speaker, 1800 watt Mark Levinson sound system. So let's go into our audio test track here, crank up the volume, and see what this sounds like. We have volume controls on the steering wheel and a knob right there. Sounds fantastic. I want to find a place to pull over up here and see what our audio settings are. Super clear, nice strong bass. Yeah, this sounds really nice. Let's just quickly dip off right here. Sound and media. We've got our bass cranked up just a little bit, which is probably a good idea. Yeah, this sounds really good. Cool. So there's an idea on levels. We have auto sound leveler for everything else. Surround sound turned on. Great. High marks for the Mark Levinson system too. The road manners here are really pretty exceptional. The 6-speed auto just holds its gears. It lets that engine ride out that torque from the turbo 2.4 and the hybrid powertrain. Power delivery is smooth, seamless. Engine's quiet too. It really doesn't make a lot of noise with how much forward acceleration it gives you. And it's so responsive. There's no lag. It just goes. All of your inputs feel really good. I like the weight to the steering. This perforated leather feels really good in hand. I'm not getting sweaty hands today. It's about 96 degrees here in Austin, Texas, very humid. AC is keeping us nice and cool. We have heated, ventilated seats if we need them. This is actually one of the nicest driving Lexus products I've driven in a while. I'm very impressed with what they've done here. They've taken a platform that was good in the Grand Highlander and the regular Highlander and just taken it to completely the next level. Stay tuned. We'll also be driving the plug-in hybrid TX 550H Plus later on in the day. So we'll get some driving impressions on that. That has a 3.5 liter V6 with 33 miles of electric driving range on a full charge, which is pretty good. So once that battery runs out, you've got basically the same amount of range you would have with an ICE vehicle. That's rated for 29 miles to the gallon combined. This is 27. But honestly, as a well-rounded, cohesive product, this TX 500H is kind of the sweet spot. And I'm surprised. I like this F-Sport performance model quite a bit too. I know you sacrifice the panoramic sunroof and a couple other things, but ultimately the driving dynamics here are so nice. The adaptive variable suspension is perfectly tuned in each of its respective drive modes. I wish it were a little bit easier to select those drive modes. I also really enjoy that rear wheel steer. It's just such a nice feature to have in the city, in tight parking situations, especially with a vehicle this size. That extra maneuverability really adds up. I think the takeaway is Lexus has done so many little tiny changes to the TX that they've really all added up. The big one is just this drives and feels like a Lexus. It feels very comfortable, very quiet, very smooth over the road. Suspension tuning is just about perfect for a vehicle like this. I think they've really hit their mark on this new TX, and I'm actually surprised that it is as good as it is. I wasn't expecting it to be this nice on the road. I wasn't as impressed with the TX 350 when I spent some time behind the wheel of that. It's a nice product, it's fine, but honestly, this powertrain is kind of going to be the way to go. If you go easy on options, price points feels about right too. It isn't cheap, but it does drive according to the price point. There are a few strange things with this Lexus TX. The fact that you can only option this with or without a panoramic sunroof is a bit odd. It's kind of strange to be in a vehicle at this price point without one. And I really I do not like these steering wheel controls one bit. In the real world, they just do not operate consistently. You press them, they don't do anything. You have to kind of hover your finger over the controls. They're a bit slow and laggy. I like the concept. I think it makes a good use of the real estate here on the steering wheel, but ultimately it's just a bit confusing. And I think for the average Lexus buyer, they're going to have trouble with it, and just as I've had trouble with it in all the Lexus vehicles that I've driven with that implementation. So otherwise, I'm a big fan of what Lexus has done here with the TX. This drives better than I was expecting it to. This is built in Indiana, and it has been developed as a US product. So we want more space, we want the ability to carry around more people, and the Lexus TX delivers on that. And the driving experience is not disappointing for the price point. I think this offers a really good blend of responsiveness, fun to drive factor, quality behind the wheel, or at least perceived quality. I mean, this really just feels very, very solid, especially compared to the Grand Highlander and Standard Highlander. As many of you know, we own a 2021 Toyota Highlander Hybrid, and with this direct 4 2.4 liter turbo hybrid powertrain, it really has a lot of responsiveness and good power, and I think this powertrain really kind of fits this vehicle's ethos. This TX should sell very well. I think it's going to be a very attractive option for families looking for a little bit more space out of their luxury crossover. And in the class that is pretty much dominated by the Acura MDX, this is so much more spacious on the inside than the MDX. Maybe not as sporty to drive, but it's close. It's not far off. We don't have savage geese today. We have buzzards. Let's just park this here very quickly and walk you around it one more time. We'll find some shade here. There we go. We have Lexus's kind of joystick shifter here, similar to what we see in a lot of their hybrid products. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you learn the operation, it's easy and quick to change from reverse to drive. I quite like it after living with it some time. This is equipped with a towing package. You can tow up to 5,000 pounds, though I don't see a hitch on this TX, which is kind of strange. I assume they change up that rear bumper to accommodate that trailer hitch. I don't know, what do you guys think? The front grille is growing on me a little bit. It's just, I think in those initial press photos, it was a bit polarizing at first. In 5 years, we'll all be used to the new Lexus spindle grille with whichever direction it goes. All right, guys, that's it. I'm going to hand this car back so some other journalists can drive and review it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.